Hello, everyone. This is episode one of my podcast. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to call it, but my first guest is a good friend of mine. His name is Tyler, and I've known Tyler from ooh, quite a few years now. It all started in our college days, so we are just going to be having a talk, chatting about things in the fitness industry, his personal journey. There'll be a few questions and things like that, so let's get started. Hello, Tyler.
How we doing, mate? You alright?
I'm alright, how are you?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Good, good. First episode, and you're on.
I know. But you're nervous, aren't you?
A little bit. I just
Yeah.
mentioned when we wasn't live, is to say that I was pretty nervous. So, how you doing? You alright?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Thank you. I've done my morning steps, so they're all capped off,
Oh,
as I
nice.
like to do. I'm very much an early bird now, to be fair.
What time do you wake up?
I think my body normally wakes me up, whether I like it or not, around about anywhere between 6 or 7 nowadays.
Alright, that is early.
So,
How many steps
I
do you do in the
know.
morning?
You got me.
How many steps do you do in the morning?
Uh, it just depends really whether I'm training on that day or not. I know it sounds quite specific, but I suppose routine's important. So on a training day, generally, I'd probably do around about 5,000. Non-training days, I might push to 10 if I'm feeling good.
Oh, okay,
So I'm
nice.
I'm very much an avid walker
Yeah.
nowadays, you could say.
Do you have a smartwatch to track the steps, or do you use your phone?
I just use the health app on the iPhone. Suppose it's there's not many times I don't actually have my phone to hand, so it just does it for me. I suppose I don't really have to think about it.
Yeah, nice one. Makes a lot of sense. That's
Yeah.
something I've been focusing on more recently, getting the steps in.
Yeah, it's just good for general health, I suppose, isn't it? Recommended.
100%. I recently got a Fitbit Versa 4, I believe.
Oh, very
And,
posh.
oh well. And to be honest, once I got the watch, I'd started tracking my steps, and I thought, I don't do any steps. I seriously need to sort this out.
I think that's with a lot of people I've noticed, especially, is that, until you actually start to track it or take more notice, you don't actually realise just how little you're doing. I think that same goes with a lot of things, though, doesn't it?
It does, I agree. So, now we are live. I've got a couple of
But
questions for you, if that's all right.
yeah, yeah, mate, crack
So,
on. I'm ready.
the first question is, how would you best describe your modus operandi regarding training?
Well, firstly, I've no idea what those words mean, so you might have to put it in layman's terms for peasants like me to understand. Firstly,
So, how do you pursue your training, nutrition? What is your go-to kind of strategy towards that?
right. So I think my focus has definitely shifted. I'll start off by, I suppose, giving a bit of a background to my overall training history.
Sure.
So initially, it was very much, well, let's start from the very beginning. Initially, it was like weight loss.
Yeah.
So I was quite well, I was morbidly obese, to put it, bluntly. So the initial goal was to just lose weight, and I achieved that pretty well and pretty fast. Actually, some would argue probably too fast, but at the time it was very much just a case of getting the weight off, which, as you can, well, I think that's what most people's kind of approach is, isn't it? If they're shifting some extra weight, they want it as fast as possible. But I achieved that. I lost well over £100.
Whew.
And then it wasn't until obviously I looked at myself at the end of that and thought, well, it's great that I've lost all this weight, but I mean, I've preserved literally zero muscle. And that was where my focus from then basically shifted, because obviously I had no knowledge with regards to um, weight training or resistance training in general. So it was just a matter of losing the weight. And, as good as that was to achieve, I wasn't particularly happy with my body composition at the end of it, for the fact that there was, as I said, no muscle preserved. So
Yeah.
then my focus shifted into weight training. And it was, I won't lie, the motive behind it, which, let's be completely honest, I think most people's initial motive and incentive behind starting to lift weights is to look good.
100%.
I think I'd argue that 99% of people who start, that is the reason as to why. And if you don't say it's, well, if you say it's not, I think you're full of shit. To be completely honest,
Say it as it
let's
is.
be
Yeah, I
honest.
agree.
But yeah, so started to do some research into the most optimal quote unquote ways to build muscle, and a lot of mistakes were made, as I think we all do. Initially, but yeah, I went. I'm very much an all or nothing kind of person with pretty much everything I do. So I went
Yeah.
all in. As much kind of sets and reps and volume and intensity as possible. And
Yeah.
as you can remember, this wasn't actually too far away from the time that when we first started training together. I mean, we'll
Exactly.
probably get into that a bit more further on, but yeah, from what I can remember, we just basically went into the gym and went balls to the walls, didn't we?
We sure did.
Yeah. And looking back now, it's a bit silly, but that's how most people start. I think it's very much that all or nothing mentality. But
I
yeah,
agree.
just to jump on from then and to talk about my current, I suppose, my current training is very much shifted from that, I suppose, aesthetic driven, just wanting to look kind of good, more into
Yeah.
general health and just
Like
well-being, just keeping
recreational.
fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically just lifting recreationally, making sure I'm eating a good diet, well balanced. My trainings, I'm at least maintaining the muscle mass that I've got. So I don't particularly have any goals as such currently, and it's very much just general health based, I'd say.
Well, wonderful. Thank you for giving that description.
Yeah, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
No.
Sorry, but I suppose.
Don't apologise. So just to backtrack a little bit, over £100 is insane.
Yeah.
Me and Tyler, we went to school together, but we didn't actually speak in school.
No, funnily enough.
No, we met a few years later at college doing our PT course.
Yeah.
And I always remember you came in a little bit late, and it was, I think, did you come in straight away, like the first term back, or did you come into the course a little bit late?
I think it was a little bit late, maybe a month or 4 to 6 weeks or so.
I was sat in the classroom and you walked in, and I had to look twice. I was like, oh my God, that's Tyler. And you'd lost so much weight. It was
it's crazy.
Like, it was literally insane. And
I mean, I still sorry mate, I still get that now though. Like, I mean, there's people now who I see or just in passing who obviously we went to school with, and they've on genuinely no idea who I am.
Yeah.
And it's not until I actually obviously tell them, and some people just don't believe me. And obviously for me, when you see yourself every day, you don't see those changes. Obviously I can see a big change now, but going through the process, you don't see the changes. But then I suppose to somebody else who hasn't seen you in years, it's like, who the bloody hell's this?
Absolutely. And we got close in college, and I was asking you, how did you do that? And you was attempting to explain to my dumb brain how macronutrients work and energy expenditure, thermogenesis in general. And I didn't have a clue, because back then I didn't really have a good foundation of knowledge when it comes to training and nutrition.
Yeah.
My knowledge was just go to the gym, hit it hard, and then eat some chicken, rice and broccoli at the end of the day.
But that's what most people
because
put it down to.
You always think that's starting out. And once our relationship expanded and we was hanging around more, we went to places like Holland and Barrett, and he was explaining supplements to me. And one day he was on MyFitnessPal. I don't know if you remember this story. And he said, oh, because she was massive.
Oh, you're not going to bring up the burrito, are you?
I am.
I knew it.
You turned around and you said, oh, I've got about, I think, 1,500 calories left. And you already had your dinner placed in MyFitnessPal. So you said to me, I think I'm going to get a burrito from KFC. And my mouth was just like open wide. I looked at you like, you can't do that.
How
You're getting
dare
so
you?
much fat. Because due to my lack of knowledge, I just presumed that bad foods made you fat.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't know about the energy expenditure and thermogenesis. So you
No.
sort of looked at me, gone out like, is this kid for real?
Yeah, one of the biggest. I think I'd argue that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions of the whole good foods, bad foods.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And from there on, you basically explained how all that worked. So I've got you to thank for it.
yeah, no, you're more than welcome, mate. Yeah,
And from there on out, we started training together. We spent a lot of time together, and to be honest, we did all sorts. We like went to Body Power,
yeah.
a lot of training sessions. Not quite as optimal as I thought, but we didn't really know any
Not
better.
quite as planned, and yeah,
Oh, and
but we were still in there. It's the most important thing.
that's it. We still
Still getting
showed up.
something done, moving
Yeah.
the body.
Now, to actually talk about our training, we never did deloads,
No,
so no kind of auto-regulated deloads or planned deloads. We just literally hit it, failure every set, balls to the wall each session, which, as we know now, is not good.
nope.
And
Certainly
I
not.
believe, I'm not sure you remember, Tyler, we was following a full body 3 times a week at one point. I believe this is when we first started. And it was always like squats first, and we classed it as strength training.
Yeah,
And I had horrible technique. I remember wearing like Air Max trainers and, oh God, half repping. Probably not even half, I was like quarter squatting.
like squatting on a seesaw.
Exactly that. And then it was basically like, it was okay in terms of what exercises we did.
Yeah,
But volume, progress.
and the actual execution of the exercise is arguably what it's 90% of what matters the most,
That's
and that
it.
was the part that was shite.
Yeah, it wasn't there. But like you say, we were still in the gym. Technically, you could say we were still active, and diet was pretty good. Diet was okay for a while. I'm going to say for a while because we both know what happened when, excuse me, we both got a bit obsessive with bulking.
In a roundabout way, you could say that. Yeah,
Yeah, so as the time went on, we decided it was time for us to start what I call massing now, but back then we called it bulking.
yeah.
And I believe
Can't say I'm keen on the traditional terms, to be
Yeah.
honest, anymore. But obviously back then that was all we kind of knew and all we kind of put it down as.
I like to say massing because psychologically, massing to me is gaining muscle. That's what springs to mind. Whereas
Definitely.
bulking, I have this psychological sort of mindset that bulking is, oh, it's just getting fat and getting like bulky.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's what the mind jumps to, in my opinion, when you say bulk. And
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what puts a lot of people off who may have that kind of goal now, is just gaining primarily fat. And if you're always going to categorize it as bulking, that fear of fat gain is only going to be enhanced. So switching it, changing the term, as you said, to massing or a muscle gain phase is way more healthy psychologically. Like you said, I'd agree.
I agree, 100%. We, ooh, I think I started at like 120 pounds. I was pretty much bone shredded. A little bit of muscle,
Yeah.
not a lot, just the newbie
At what
gains.
height again?
Sorry?
At what height?
5'7",
120.
5'8"
Yeah.
in my Air Max.
But yeah, I mean that's a low body weight.
Yeah, and I always remember, like we were saying, oh, you're gonna compete and all this, but it was just the newbie gains, and it's just having a pump and the gym lighting. We
Yeah,
were
but
both,
I wouldn't change any of that, because it was that kind of excitement and that that got us into the gym, and that passion. And
that's it.
you look back now and you think, yeah, it's not particularly a goal that I have anymore, whether it is or isn't. But I think that initial kind of passion is something that everybody has, when they first start their fitness journey.
Absolutely. And we had a lot of conversations about competing and even like anabolics and things as well.
Yeah, yeah,
As you do,
definitely.
it's perfectly normal. Anybody that says that they haven't actually thought about them is probably lying.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
And I decided I wanted to do what you was doing, and that is bulking, as to say.
Hmm.
And oh dear, I bulked all right, but it wasn't lean muscle tissue. It was a lot of fat.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all actually go through that dream of bulk though. I'd argue that, as I say, probably 95% of people um who begin weight training in the who have the goal of muscle gain kind of go through that initial dirty bulk
Yeah,
as we refer to it as.
we just view calories as muscle.
Yeah, essentially, which is not the case at all. But
Oh, it was terrible. We was well, I don't know, like
I
some
wouldn't
days it
change
was
it.
okay, other days we were shoveling Ben and Jerry's down and thinking more calories, more muscle, we're gonna get so big, we're gonna gain all this
Yeah.
tissue, but in reality, we're just getting fat.
Can you remember? There was one time where I think I shoveled down like a full tub of ice cream, and then I filled it with frozen fruit and veg, and like had that afterwards because I thought that it would compensate.
If anything,
I don't
it'd
know if
make
you
it
can
worse.
remember. Yeah,
Due to the initial calories. I do remember that. It was one of those big tubs of vanilla ice cream.
yeah, literally like 3,000 calories
Yeah.
of ice cream, and I thought I'd offset it with some frozen peas and carrots after to
I
make
do
me feel
remember.
better.
We had dinner and you said, "Oh, I'm probably just gonna have a few scoops of ice cream, fit it in my macros." 5 minutes later, the entire tub's destroyed. And 5 minutes after that, it's filled with sweet corn and peas, whatever you put in it. Some of the shit we used to do.
Yeah. I wouldn't change it though, like I say, and I think you've kind of got to make mistakes in order to, realize where you've gone wrong, quote unquote. I mean, you
Absolutely.
can't actually get better until you make those trip ups.
That's it, mate. You learn from your mistakes 100%.
Definitely.
So back to your journey then. Is there anything that really springs to mind when you started, like losing this weight, getting into the gym? Was there any sort of nutritional strategy that you followed? Any kind of training program that you thought would best enhance your gains?
Completely honest, when I first set the goal out of gaining muscle, I think that I can't actually remember this specific program that I followed. I know that you mentioned that we followed a full body routine, which I do remember vaguely.
Yeah.
But the first, if anything does spring to mind, the first kind of time that I actually put a real plan into place, which was successful. This was probably post the whole kind of dirty bulking phase, if you
Yeah.
like, was when I started to follow a push pull legs routine.
Okay.
And I'm not actually entirely sure as to why I decided to follow push pull legs. To be completely honest, it was probably just a quick YouTube search. I think we all do this, what's the best split or
Yeah.
what's the best quote unquote training plan.
That's it. The 6 day a week training program seems to come across
Yeah,
as
yeah,
optimal
definitely. And I
because
think that that's the one that, was being pushed mainly.
that's
So
it.
that's essentially what I started to follow.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't make great progress on that. And I followed it for a very long time, 2, 3 years probably
Okay.
before I actually started to experiment with different training splits, if if you'd like to call it that. But yeah, I think that I'd argue that for most people, instead of jumping into a 5, 6 day a week routine initially for beginners, it's obviously smart to do. I like to say do the least amount of work that elicits the most amount of change, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So follow a 3 day split, and then maybe as you do progress, push into more of the 4 day split,
Absolutely.
and don't go all in straight away because that could be gains that you're leaving on the table.
Yeah.
But, again, that mentality of all or nothing, I wanted it as quickly as possible. I jumped to that 6-day push-pull legs,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't change it because I enjoyed every single training session that I had. But looking back now, there are obviously things that I'd change.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to talk about that point you made about beginners, there's studies out there that beginners grow from endurance training, and we've both had the conversation before of how we used to say, oh, our quads are growing from running, like when we first started training, because obviously
100%.
any stimuli you present is going to have change on your body as it's so sensitive to growth.
Yeah.
And it's a known fact as well that beginners can grow from 1 times a week frequency. So they could just do a full body session once a week and they'll grow.
Crazy.
That's
Crazy.
it,
If that was the case now, eh?
Oh, tell me about it. So you made a really
So
good
much
point
easier.
there. Yeah, by doing the least amount of work. And obviously that's going to contribute to ensure that there's no sort of injury or, like you're going balls to the wall too much and running into fatigue problems too soon. Do the least amount of work, get really good gains, and then start thinking about different training splits.
Yeah.
Solid
100%.
point.
And going back to what you said about beginners or, people who are completely untrained getting gains from just in the endurance.
Yeah.
When I was taking it all the way back to when I was morbidly obese,
Yeah.
I was actually still incredibly active. I'd play football like 4 or 5 times a week at least.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd actually go on runs, believe it or not, as well. It was just that I was shoveling the calories down after those. But yeah, so what, again, going off on a tangent, but with me essentially being in a calorie surplus, however, partaking in a lot of physical activity, I think it's safe to say that genetically my legs are a very much a strong point of mine anyway. But
Absolutely.
I also credit that to the fact that I was eating in a surplus when I was obese, but along with all of that physical activity, being on my legs so much, playing football, that I gained a significant amount of muscle in my legs at that body composition, if that makes sense.
It does.
And
That's
it's
a
not
really
until
good
I look
point.
back now that that's where I can credit most of my leg gains to, which is crazy, really,
Yeah.
because there was obviously no intention of muscle gain. I don't even think I performed a single squat, in those years. But
Squat down to get the cookies out of the bottom drawer.
pretty much. But yeah, it makes total sense when I think back now, and I think that's why maintenance volume for the legs for me is pretty much non-existent, which is great. But
it's very interesting you say that point, because genetics play a huge factor when it comes to stronger muscle groups and just ones that visually, look bigger or just grow more in general than others.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day, and I've noticed that a lot of strong men, they'll have big calves. And then, because I watched a few videos, and there's guys will say, like, to people like Eddie Hall, like, oh, how'd you get your calves so big? And he'll say, oh, it's just from literally walking around, like, I weigh that much. Yep. I'm constantly presenting a stimulus to my calves. And also when you've got, because they like do the yoke walks and everything like that, where they've literally got like 1,000 pounds on the back or whatever it is.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously range of motion and motor unit recruitment and just good technique in general is very important for growing a muscle group. However, sometimes you just look at individuals and think, like, surely it's not purely genetic.
No.
One thing that's, I don't know if you've ever noticed this is quite strange, but whenever I've seen local, like, postmen or post ladies, people that deliver the post work for Royal Mail, they all have massive calves.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Yeah, no, I can 100% resonate with that.
Yeah.
Because, as I say, now I'm very much an avid walker, and I do thousands and thousands of steps a week. And admittedly, I don't think I've performed a calf raise now in at least 2 years. I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah.
And my calves are still of significant size. Don't get me wrong, they're not huge, but I've arguably maintained 90% of the muscle that I had when I actually used to train my calves to what I do now. And I'd 100% put that down to just the increase in steps.
Yeah. there's so many variables, and it is actually really interesting when you dive into it all. And
Yeah,
the point you made about
definitely.
your quads, especially, because when we first started doing the quote unquote strength training, basically squatting at the start of our full body session,
Yeah,
2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, you was squatting like 105 kilos for reps.
yeah.
And I was just there like, why am I not doing that?
And I'd argue that genetics definitely do play a role. I think, my quads were predisposed to be, of decent strength and size.
Yeah.
So I can't put it all down to obviously the numerous tubs of ice creams and football 4 times a week that many years ago. But yeah, I would
Oh,
argue that genetics are a big, big component.
I agree. I agree. So, at the time you was obese, did you run into any kind of issues such as joint wear and tear or just like general health, like cardiovascular wise or anything like that?
Again, as I say, I was actually from memory, I was actually very, very active for my size and for my body composition. So
Yeah.
I'd argue not. And obviously, I had plenty of calories to fuel all the exercise
Yeah.
and activity. So no, nothing from memory. Obviously, I probably didn't particularly feel the greatest due to the foods that I was consuming and my overall diet as a
Yeah.
whole. But no, nothing particularly springs to mind,
So
to be
the
honest.
joints are all good and everything.
Yeah, seemingly.
That's
Um,
brilliant. Okay, so
I'm not no way am I advocating that kind of lifestyle by any means.
everyone
But
go do it.
yeah, but no, from memory, I was obviously not healthy as a blanket statement, quote unquote, but I felt good enough. Let's say.
Yeah. Um, there is one more point I want to bring up just before we move on, and that is you introduced me to an individual whose name I won't speak of because I've not asked his permission, but I'm pretty sure you know who it is.
Yeah, probably so.
And he started massing at the time as well when me and
Yeah.
you began, and we went to go and visit such this. Well, we went to go and visit this individual at university,
Yeah.
and I think he thought we were gonna go. Well, you were strong. I'm talking more for myself here. You sent him a few videos of me squatting 100 kg, very questionable technique. But at the time we didn't know better, and he thought, oh, he's getting so strong. And we went down to visit him. We had a gym session. And I always remember we were loading up like 100 kilos on the squat, and I thought, oh, yeah, I'm going to do so well. Racked the weight, and then I started doing my half reps. And he just looked at me like,
What the fuck is this?
this guy's full of shit. Me and you were like giving each other high fives, saying, "Oh yeah, this is so good." Great work, and it wasn't great work.
He's probably listening, actually, isn't he? Let's be honest.
It's possible. But yeah, do you remember that time?
I definitely do, along with many others. But again, I wouldn't change it.
No, I
They're all
wouldn't
good
change
memories.
it. Not at all. So, my next question, and this can be more of a discussion, is what do you think of the condition of the fitness and nutrition industry?
Wow, that is a very, very broad question.
Yes.
Well, with regards to what are we talking, like strictly bodybuilding, or are we talking more general health and fitness, or
Um,
because I do put the two in very different categories.
yeah, absolutely. We'll talk just overall, the kind of stuff you see on the internet, the things you see within gyms, that kind of
First
stuff.
thing that springs to mind, I'd say, is a lot of bullshit. To put it bluntly, a lot of misinformation, a lot of misguidance.
Yeah.
I'll just elaborate on what I said with regards to bodybuilding and general health and fitness being two completely different things. In my opinion, this is something that I've this is an opinion that I've formed fairly recently, to be completely honest, because I've always been in that mindset that, you know, if you want to be fit, if you're into fitness, let's say, that you have to do bodybuilding. And I've always kind of coincided the two, but genuinely they could not be any more different. I think that bodybuilding is very much more of it's kind of a more extreme form of fitness, if that makes sense. Would you agree?
In terms of extreme,
I suppose what I mean, I don't know if I'd say extreme. It's more that I think that people fall into the trap of, if they want to be a fit and healthy person, they need to bodybuild, if that makes sense, and they
that
need
makes
to gain
sense.
muscle.
Yeah. No, that's certainly not the case at all.
No.
Bodybuilding or just physique development is fantastic for health. It's amazing, and it comes with many, many benefits. However, it's not a necessity for just general health, as you say yourself, and just feeling better. I personally believe that if somebody was to promote that you have to do bodybuilding or just some sort of weight training, then, it's very questionable.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, again, if you want to resistance train, you want to have that as a part of your overall fitness routine, I think that if you start to lift weights and you start to quote unquote bodybuild, I think a lot of people then look up to these people who, again, I can actually use this word now, extreme, in this context. It probably makes more sense. Actually start to follow the advice of the extremists in bodybuilding who do genuinely compete, and they feel as though if they're not doing what they're doing, then they're not going to be able to be successful.
Absolutely. The false
Which,
reality.
again, couldn't be further from the truth.
That's it. Yeah. It dwells down to the unrealistic goals. A lot of people say that they want to look like Ronnie Coleman or just like all the Olympia guys on the stage, and there is a chance that some people can, but for the vast majority of individuals, it's just really not the case.
Yeah, because let's be completely honest, that is an area where genetics are everything.
100%.
It's the point percentage of people who can actually achieve those kind of physiques.
Yeah.
But when you see it on the magazines and on the YouTube, everybody wants to be that. Everybody wants to be that person. And as you say, if you go in with that goal, it's not going to take long before you get shot down, and that's when most people close the book, because they realise that it's not sustainable.
Absolutely. And because these, like Olympia people are the best of the best, like you say yourself, people believe I've got to do what they do.
Yeah.
When the reality is they just have incredible genetics and are taking a lot of anabolics.
Yep. Definitely. And then that's when it can get dangerous with regards to something, that's supposed to enhance your life and improve your physical and mental well-being, doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Especially the mental health aspect of it. Not to dive too deep into that, but, if you do, as I say, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
That saying definitely holds true, is that if you're constantly comparing yourself to these blessed individuals, your mental health's going to suffer, because you're never going to look like them, or you're never going to actually achieve the goal that you perceive, what you envision yourself achieving, which is, competing or achieving an extreme low level of body fat whilst maintaining a substantial amount of muscle. It's just not possible for the average Joe. And that's when it really can start to have a dangerous effect on you mentally as well as physically. So I'd advise people to definitely not fall into that trap, or try and prevent it as much as possible, because then it's obviously having the complete opposite effect of what you initially set out to achieve, which is to enhance your life.
I agree. The point you made about people who are just starting out or just recreational lifters in general, they'll look up to these people. And to be honest, you can't really blame them because
No.
that big and they're everywhere that people get the presumption that, oh, that's it then.
Yeah.
Whereas
Definitely.
if you dig a little bit deeper, there's a lot more scientific principles that you can apply to make sure things are safe.
Yeah.
In regards to training and nutrition, and making sure that you don't really touch anabolics unless you decide to further down the line.
Yeah.
And also, it's very, when you're starting off, you're very vulnerable to any kind of education regarding training and nutrition,
100%.
as you don't have a broad foundation or just knowledge in general. People will believe a lot of stuff that you tell them, especially if you're a bit, if you're like a big dude.
Yep. And
And-
social media is to blame.
yeah.
Let's be completely honest. But what people don't really realize is social media is a highlight reel. It's not reality. And as good as social media can be for certain things, I'd argue that the majority of it is bullshit and needs to be. The shift needs to happen.
Absolutely.
Because we put health into a category of, or we put these people who are dieting to extremely low levels of body fat, and these people with substantial amounts of muscle, the physiques that aren't maintainable for 99% of people, into the category of health, and you need to look this way in order to be healthy. And again, it just could not be further from the truth.
That's it. That's absolutely right. I think as well, it's something that, in my opinion, needs to be changed. Social media and a lot of people that just represent fitness and nutrition in general don't actually tell the truth when it comes to what they're doing behind closed doors.
No.
They just think like, oh, it's just hard work and diet.
Yeah. I mean, to be completely honest, if somebody is considering using anabolics, you need to really rationalize, take a step back, and ask yourself why. If the genuine reason is because you want to pursue a career in bodybuilding, and you do want to compete, and you have the genetic potential for that, I would argue, all credit to you.
Yeah.
Honestly, go for it.
Yeah.
Providing that you're checking your health regularly, and got all the protocols in place, etc. But
That's it.
if it's purely for aesthetic purposes and just to look good, it's probably one of the stupidest decisions you could ever make, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That should not be the motive. However, if, as I say, it's because you want to make it a lifestyle and a career, why not?
Yeah,
And you have that potential genetically. But yeah, I mean, let's be honest, 99% of people who are on PEDs and anabolics do it for the aesthetics.
Yeah.
Which is, well, not something I'd recommend.
And like you say, the word to focus on there is career. In order to get to the high level of bodybuilding, you pretty much have to take anabolics.
Yeah, it's necessary.
If you want to go to like the next stage, you can get very far naturally, but sometimes if you do it naturally and you think like, I want to push further, then it is probably a necessity.
Yeah. And even then though, is it something that you truly want to do? Yeah, let's tick the boxes. Do you have the genetics? Yes. Do you want to compete? Yes.
Yeah.
But then step back and rationalize, are you doing this for yourself, or are you doing this for other people?
Yeah.
Are you doing this because you've seen X amount of people on social media doing it, and that's why you want to do it? And you understand the kind of engagement and recognition you'll get by doing it, or are you doing it because you want to do it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the same the same goes for absolutely everything. You need to actually look at your motive and incentive behind doing things. And if it's for other people, I'd argue it's not worth it, or I'd say it's 100% not worth it.
Yeah,
But if it's for yourself, then crack on.
absolutely. Very good points there. Okay, so moving on, is there anything that you'd like to talk about, Tyler?
Oh, I knew you was going to ask me this question.
And any questions for me? Anything that you just want
Well,
to touch on?
yeah, I was going to throw a question back at you. There was something that I was going to ask, and it was what, obviously now you've actually kind of pursued this fitness kind of lifestyle a lot more as of current than what I have. And,
Yeah.
you've gone on to coaching, open like a coaching business, which is fantastic. And what actually gave you that incentive and drive to want to, I suppose, take that next step in coaching other people?
So, as we both know, we did our PT course, which, in all honesty, was pretty good. But you only learn a handful of information.
Definitely.
And coming out of that, I always thought that I would make good PT, but I never really wanted to do personal training face to face.
Yeah.
And I thought about it for a while, and I came to the decision that I needed to expand my knowledge and just learn more in order for me to actually coach people. As I say, I didn't really want to PT, so what came to mind was online coaching. And fortunately for me, I came across a lot of individuals that do online coaching. Like the people at RP and like Steve Hall and all those kind of guys.
Yeah.
And once I discovered their information they was giving, it basically all started from there. I just absolutely love what they were saying, because my mindset with training has always been like, so for example, when I used to watch fitness videos, like back in the day when, me and you was training together, people would say like, oh, just try this, do this, etc. But they never really gave an explanation as to why.
Yeah.
Oh, do 4 sets this session, but then that was it. There was never a why to it.
Yeah.
My mind works in such a way that I want to know why I'm doing something. How is this benefiting
100%.
me? How am I going to progress doing this?
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting that, so I became really fascinated by the scientific principles of training, because it doesn't become more of a why than science,
Yeah. Yeah.
So my mindset was, I'm going to just keep educating myself. So if when I do online coaching, I take that jump, I'm very confident in my abilities, not just for coaching myself, but also coaching other individuals.
Yeah.
And I would happily say that right now, I'm pretty much very confident in my abilities. There's always room for improvement, and I'm still learning. But I can always justify my training and nutrition now, whereas a few years ago, I could justify it a little bit.
Yeah.
But I never really could explain it to the point where it made a lot of sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, mate, 100%. You gave me a lot more than what I originally expected there, to be fair.
No.
Sounds like I'm interviewing you now, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there's I like to, with this podcast as well, just have general discussion between both of us.
I am going back to what you said about reasons as to why. That's definitely a thing that,
Yeah.
needs to be improved upon with all the information, or the majority of information that's out there now. Because as you say, if you don't actually understand the backing or the reason as to why you're doing something, then why are you doing it? Do you know what I mean? Why would you do something?
Yeah.
If you don't. Yeah, I 100% agree.
And for me now, that's one big thing that I do pursue with my clients, is the wants and needs analysis and just overall specificity and just justification. I feel it's very important.
To be fair, the information that you've the information that I've seen you put out on your Instagram and stuff's all been absolutely brilliant. So
I appreciate
whoever's
that.
listening who's not giving it a follow, shameless plug for you. Definitely do, because there's not one thing that I've read or listened to that I've disagreed with.
I appreciate that.
Genuinely.
It's just important. Like, if somebody was to ask me, why are you doing that? I'd always want to be able to give a logical reason. Sometimes,
100%.
like, I always remember one story where there was me and you on the leg press machine in our old gym, and
Yeah.
I was basically just chasing PRs. We was just loading like 25 kilo plates.
Our old gym, which is still my current gym.
That's the one. And this guy came over. I was leg pressing, and I was just making a fool of myself basically because I'd loaded it up and I wasn't doing a good range of motion, and technique was very questionable.
Yeah.
And he said, "You do realise that you need to go further down." And in all honesty, the way he addressed it was quite rude because I was just minding my own business. But to be honest, I wasn't really helping myself.
No.
And I kind of just turned around and said like something on the lines of, "Yeah, but I'm feeling it in my quads. It's okay."
Yeah.
When the reality is he actually had a really good point.
Definitely.
Try and go further down with those plates on and see what happens.
Yeah.
Not
And much. They won't come back up.
That's the one. And from there on out, I always tinkered with the idea of being able to justify things, but I guess I never really went down that path because I wasn't really confident in my own abilities. Yeah. And I didn't know who to turn to when it came to actually learning these scientific principles and understanding why we are doing these things in training.
Yep.
And to be honest,
and you know what?
Carry on.
No, sorry, mate, carry on.
No, you're all good.
No, I was just about to, whilst it's on my mind, we somewhat took offence to that comment, and I think a big reason as to why is obviously we don't feel this way at all in the slightest anymore, but we'd argue that the individual who, critiqued your form probably was holding less muscle than you was at the time. And because of that, we kind of disregarded the information that he was trying to give us because we thought that we knew better. Absolutely. And I think that is taking it all the way back to what we were discussing before about people following the advice of others. They're always more likely to take the advice or follow the principles of people who, quote unquote, look better than them or look better than the next person. But let's be completely honest, aesthetics and knowledge definitely do not go hand in hand.
I agree. It's
so
their evidence is their physique.
Yeah, essentially, which is
I put a post on my story about this recently, and I mentioned that if you are searching for a coach or PT and you're basically judging their abilities based off how they look or the amount of muscle mass they have, it's like not taking your car to your local mechanic because they don't work for McLaren.
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, and furthermore, a lot, like we said earlier, when a lot of people are starting out or people just don't have knowledge about training in general, they're going to turn to the big guys in the gym.
Yeah.
Because they say, "Oh, well, it's always worked for me, so it should work for you too."
Yeah.
Which is a 100%. Shame, really.
Yeah, it's a massive shame, and to sum that up, I'd say everything is just not what it seems, and be very, very careful where you get your information from. Make sure the sources are credible, and actually are qualified in what they're talking about, preferably.
100%. Nowadays, if I'm in the gym and I see a big dude who's like quarter repping 9 plates or something ridiculous on a leg press, I just look away. I'm just kind of like, you do you. But if I see an individual that's leg pressing like 1 or 2 plates and they're using amazing technique, they're getting a good full range of motion, I look at them and I think they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what? Something I always say as well is unsafe as some people do train. I think for me, it all comes down to enjoyment. You know, if you enjoy training that way and you're not hurting anybody,
Absolutely.
well, you are probably at risk of hurting yourself.
Yourself.
but but yeah, if you're not hurting anybody else, then crack on, I suppose.
Absolutely.
'Cause it all comes down to enjoyment at the end of the day.
It does. It does.
Because without enjoyment, there's no adherence.
Not at all. And I think for a lot of the big, for like, I'm not referring to them as the big guys, but the people who train who don't have a lot of intelligence in regards to like the scientific side of things, it's one of those where people will, like we said earlier, they'll look up to these guys and think that they know everything and blah blah blah. However, if something has always worked for them and they're not getting injured and they are enjoying it, then they should probably keep doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Why fix what's not broken?
Yeah,
basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do agree, mate.
So, moving on, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about? I'd like to make sure as well that we're just having a general discussion.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, to be honest, I was just more curious as to why you chose to take this next step in your journey by coaching other people and pursuing the PTing route further. But no, you clear that up really well, and all credit to you, mate. Crack on. I probably couldn't do it myself. I don't think I have the patience, but you're doing an amazing job, to be fair.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that a lot. So, moving forward then, do you have any goals? Anything in
As I
mind?
said, my training and nutrition currently is very much down to just maintenance and enjoyment.
Yeah, is that for like the future as well then?
Yeah, for the foreseeable.
Yeah.
So if I was to have any kind of specific goal in mind, it would be a muscle gain phase.
Yeah.
However, for me personally, it's not something that I feel as though I could adhere to currently because I am getting just as much enjoyment from just maintaining my current body composition and what I've accumulated over the years, I suppose.
Great
so
stuff.
For me, that's more than enough currently.
What does the training look like right now? Is it push-pull legs?
It was a 4-day split. It has been a 4-day split in upper lower for quite some time now, probably around about a year.
Lower, rest Wednesday, upper lower Thursday, Friday?
Correct.
Yeah.
However, funnily enough, you've asked this at a perfect time because as of tomorrow, I think I'm going to move back into a full body split, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Oh, nice.
So I've been writing that up over the last couple of days. As I say, with my goal only being maintenance, it's nothing too specific.
No.
But yeah, just trying to find what exercises I want to do with regards to, as I say, enjoyment's the most important thing for me now. Volume's very low because, as I say, goal is just maintenance, and as we know, in order to maintain muscle.
Do you count volume?
Say again, sorry.
Do you count volume?
Well, this is another discussion completely, isn't it? I personally do, just because I think it's a good way to ballpark it, I suppose.
Absolutely.
It's not 100% necessary, in my opinion, but it's something I've always done. It's something that's worked for me, so it's something I'll continue to do.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. You then know that you're around maintenance volume.
Yeah, definitely. And everybody's going to differ, obviously, with what they can get away with and what they can't. But if you're a well-trained individual, you're going to know your individual needs, obviously.
Yeah. What did a upper body session and lower body session look like?
So I call it upper lower, but it was more of an upper limbs, if that makes sense. So I put my arms with my lower days.
Okay.
Essentially.
Did you start with arms or?
On the lower days, no. I'd start with my lower body compound lifts. So whether that's a squat, pattern, or whether that's an RDL, a hinge movement,
Okay.
preferably an RDL. And then I just move on to isolation work pretty much for the arms and rear delts. I'd put on the lower days as well at the end, and then the upper body. Obviously, that leaves more of the major muscle groups like the chest, the back, and the shoulders.
Yeah. And is there any kind of exercise you favour within upper body training?
Well, with regards to my training as a whole, my exercises don't particularly change.
No.
As I say, biomechanically, I think most people will find exercises that work the best for them.
Yeah,
And I'd
100%.
argue that just getting progressively, well, depending on your goal, progressively stronger, getting progressively stronger on those exercises that you enjoy the most and are most effective for you is the best way to see progression.
Yeah.
It's not, obviously variation's good and necessary at times. But I'd argue that, the most effective thing is the same exercises which you can do week in, week out and enjoy doing are going to be the best for you.
I couldn't agree more. And personally, like on a personal preference, do you lean more towards machines or barbell?
I like to incorporate everything
Okay.
as best as I can, to be honest.
Yeah.
I do. I'm a big advocate of dumbbell work.
Yeah.
Because I just feel as though I don't know. I don't know. I suppose everybody's different, but for me, dumbbells are the most enjoyable.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you stick to machines, the majority of the time, which is what a lot of people do, yes, as good as they are for hypertrophy, obviously are not particularly engaging any of those stabilizers the muscles, which I'd argue could be just as important as the major muscles themselves.
Absolutely. Like a raw stimulus magnitude perspective, you're probably going to get a little bit more out of the dumbbells than you are a machine. But that's not to write the machines off. It seems you have a really good balance within exercises.
Yeah, definitely. I do like cable work as well. I like a lot of if I'm using cables, I enjoy unilateral cable work. So I do a lot of single arm pull downs and single arm lateral raises with the cables, just because that's what feels best for me.
That's perfect.
And obviously they're incredibly good for correcting muscle imbalances as well.
Okay. Do you have any imbalances?
Nothing major. I'd probably, if anything springs to mind, I'd probably say one of my triceps is slightly bigger than the other.
Oh, really?
But obviously, doing work unilaterally over time will correct that. Providing that you are performing, the same amount of reps for each arm.
Yeah. 100%. The worst thing you can do is do more on one side than the other.
Yeah, cause it's just going to get worse over time. Obviously,
it's probably just better to doing the isolateral or unilateral work and then just perform the weak side first.
Yeah, definitely, and then only match the reps that you get with the weaker arm with the stronger side following.
Absolutely, yeah. Great stuff. And is there any kind of cardio implemented, or is it just the steps?
Well, because just the steps as a current. No, not particularly any planned cardio. As I say, I do anywhere between 15 to 20,000 steps, probably daily, to be honest.
Oh wow!
So there's no need for any additional cardio. I feel I'd be a bit burnt out if I put that into my plan.
You got a high TDEE then?
Well, yeah, I'd argue so. But as I say, my body weight currently is but relatively low compared to what it has been in the past. So calorie maintenance is in turn lower. But that's just the way I like to do things at the minute. Maintaining a lower body weight. I feel a bit more functional when I'm lighter, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I'm not gonna lie. I'm the heaviest I've ever been right now. And if you heard what I weighed compared to what I used to weigh, you'd be like, "Holy shit!"
It does take a toll. It does take a toll.
It really does.
People don't really realise that until they're
there. So, if you don't mind sharing, what are your maintenance calories right now?
It ranges, to be completely honest. I'm not as stringent with my intake as what I used to be.
Yeah.
But it's anywhere around the 2,000 mark, I'd probably say daily.
Oh, really?
So, as I say, maintaining a pretty low body weight, but obviously that will regulate your hunger as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that because my body weight's low that I'm ravenous 24/7. It just
Yeah,
means that
yeah.
there's less demand for food.
Yeah.
Therefore, calorie maintenance will be lower. So everything's relative, isn't it? But yeah, anywhere around about the 2,000 mark, but that works for me.
Great stuff.
So yeah, that's where we are.
And you're 6'2"? You 6'2"?
Yeah, give or take 6'2". So I like to say 6'3", just 'cause it
So,
sounds a bit better. But
so you're
yeah,
huge.
somewhere in between the two.
And what's body weight looking like, if you don't mind sharing?
To be completely honest, mate, I don't think I've weighed myself in about a month. It's
Oh,
something that
okay.
it's something that I kind of stopped doing.
Yeah.
Some good time back now, and even then, when I was actually taking my body weight, it was something that was being done once every 2 to 3 weeks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I just kind of thought, well, look, I mean, the mirror and how I feel is going to be a way better indicator
Yeah.
than a number on a scale. Obviously, that is a good variable if you have goals, but for me, not having the goal of weight gain or loss currently, it's pretty irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
So I couldn't actually give you a number.
No, I remember when you weighed around 240 pounds.
Yeah, yeah, that's
He was huge.
uh, not in the best way, but
No,
yeah,
no, not in the best way, as we discussed earlier.
no, definitely not.
Oh,
Yeah, those days are gone,
yeah.
thankfully.
I mean, touching on that, I'm the heaviest I've been right now, and in all honesty, I've had a lot of second thoughts about it. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't.
Mm,
I understand the sacrifices you have to make to gain muscle mass as a natural.
yep.
However, given my physiology, a lot of the consequences I have experienced, to me, don't really seem worth it.
Okay.
Just in the case of gaining extra muscle tissue.
Yeah.
What originally happened was I was stalling at around, I'll just be honest, 160 pounds.
Mm,
And as you know, back in the day when we trained together and we did the quote unquote bulk, I probably weighed like, I say 120 and I got to around 160.
yep.
However, a lot of that was fat tissue. And as a result, further down the line, whenever the scale weight has gone up for me and I've approached the 160, psychologically, I've always been just stressed because I think, oh my God, I look exactly how I did,
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 years ago. But the reality
Makes
was,
sense.
I didn't. I actually
No.
look pretty good,
Yep.
which is obviously a fantastic sign.
Yeah,
However,
definitely.
once I realised that was the situation, I told myself I'm going to keep massing, but the scale wasn't going up.
Hmm.
And so I thought, okay, I'm going to bump the calories up and I'm going to gain some weight. That's exactly what I did. And the scale was rising, probably too rapidly for, for what's healthy. However, I felt it was required because in order to gain, muscle tissue, you have to gain weight. You have to push the scale a
Yeah.
little bit. But nothing's been out of control this mass. Everything's gone as it should. However, now, are you ready for how much I weigh?
Yeah, if you're willing to,
I weigh
you're
I
willing to
weigh
disclose.
108 I weigh 180 pounds now,
Wow.
which is the heaviest I've been. And
Shit. But yeah.
go on.
No, but I said, I bet your body composition at 180 now, opposed to the 160 in the past, is I'm presuming a lot better.
Absolutely, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
I
brilliant. Yeah.
oh, sorry about that. I recently put well, not recently, but probably, I'm not actually sure, but there's a post on my Instagram where I describe what happened when I did that bulk, and I posted a picture of what I looked like. And I didn't look terrible, but
No.
I didn't exactly look, like great. And even now at 180 pounds, I look way better than what I did there, which is a great sign.
Yeah, it's a huge takeaway.
However, what I'm finding strange at the minute is, so my height is probably like 5'7", 5'8". If I'm looking like this at that height, how much more could I actually push until I start actually looking like really fluffy and kind of like that stage of your massing phase where you think like, okay, it's time to cut.
Yeah.
But I don't think I want to do that. And going forward, I'm probably going to do a mini cut or even just do a really big cut and kind of focus more on kind of like what you've been doing, Tyler, to be honest, like just maintaining tissue and just looking at health more.
Yeah. Yeah, maintenance phases I think are necessary because it gives you a chance to, again, look at what your goals actually are, and what you want to achieve going forwards. But no, mate, sounds brilliant to me. As I say, £20 increase at better body composition's a dream to most people.
I know. I was like, what's going on?
I bet you've got some cracking tissue under there.
I hope so.
I bet it's exciting for you to see what comes of it when you do decide to cut down. But yeah, you definitely do reach that point of diminishing returns when you're gaining weight. I would agree.
When you actually go through a dedicated mass, you do realise you understand your physiology a lot more.
Yeah.
I've noticed what you mentioned earlier about how you're more productive at lighter body weights. I think I'm the same, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've noticed that sometimes I can just be like, oh, I'm just the psychological stress that comes along with it of eating your meals because calories are obviously going to be high.
Yeah.
And then ensuring that progression's happening in the gym and you're also getting your steps in, which is obviously stuff that you just do in general. However, when you're taking it to almost an extreme, it becomes a little bit like repetition is necessary, but it also gets to the point where
it becomes a chore.
It's a chore. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And my situation right now, I sat down and thought about it the other night. I'm not really in a place where I want to be feeling like I'm doing a chore day in and day out. I'd much rather...
Because it draws some enjoyment from it, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
When something starts to feel like a chore, you lose that enjoyment aspect, and that's when, it isn't something that you're probably going to adhere to for too much longer.
Yeah.
Until a change is made. So yeah, it's good that you've probably come into that realization now.
And a big part of that is because I ended my last mesocycle early, as I was experiencing a lot of joint and connective tissue discomfort. I took 2 weeks active rest because I do deloads, like probably 4 week, 5 week accumulation, and then obviously like 1 week deload. Yeah. However, that's all I've done for a long time. I've never truly had a 2 weeks active rest or like a resensitization phase. So I decided, I'm going to just take 2 weeks off and just let everything heal, eat at maintenance as you do, focus on steps, doing a little bit of stretching and just staying active.
Yeah.
And being at this body weight, doing those things and not training has freed up a little bit of psychological space, and it's just made me contemplate this body weight and just massing in general and just thinking like, okay, I seriously need to just decide when I'm going to cut, what weight I'm going to go to, and just sort of plan into the future more.
Yeah.
So just having a plan, putting it in place and sticking to it is very important.
Definitely, mate. And to be fair, as I say, it is good that you're probably coming to that realisation now, because it might eventually in the near future get to a point where you are mentally and physically burnt out from the process, and that's when it probably gets too late. So
Absolutely. So it's been an hour and 10 minutes.
It has never been over an hour.
It has.
Wow.
Time flies.
That's flown, yeah. Crazy.
I'll end the first episode here. I don't want to keep you too long.
Yeah, no, mate, that's perfectly fine. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It has. It has. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
everything.
thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, mate. Definitely.
No worries at all. And in all honesty, I have no idea what I'm going to call this podcast. I have no idea if anybody's going to listen to it.
Oh no, we'll have a few listeners, I'm sure.
But if some of the things we said made sense, great. If they didn't, bear with me. I won't speak
It's
on
the
behalf of
first one.
Tyler. I'll just speak about myself.
I hope I've been as good as a guest as you anticipated.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate it very much.
No, you're more than welcome, mate.
So there's not really any like plugins I need to do really, because you're not really active on social media or anything like that, are
No,
you?
not at all. I'm very much an introvert nowadays. So if you want to follow me, don't.
Don't leave them alone.
Yeah, piss off.
Alright.
Brilliant.
Right. Thank you if you listen to this. I appreciate it. And episode 2 will come, I don't know, at some point.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tyler.
Cheers, mate.